So we come to the final part where we just bring all the bits together. I've put the soldering iron away and we're back to glues and screws. And the first thing I'm going to do is fit the top assembly to the main bookcase. Right, the next thing I'm going to fit is the sloping top roof. Now the next thing I want to fit is the top light. So let's have a look at that. Now this is how the top light's going to come to you. So obviously we're going to have to cut out the ends and we're going to have to trim it down to just the right size. Now it should be a fraction too long. So what we'll do first of all is we'll just cut the ends off and then we'll trim down the sides. Now once you've got these ends cut off, you're probably better off with this, a nice sharp pair of scissors. So I'm just going to trim down the sides. And what we've got to do now is just go through a short process of trimming down until we get exactly the right fit in the groove here, top and bottom, and also in the grooves at the back of the light. So the first thing I'm going to do is get it to fit in the groove and the back parts. So I'm just going to trim this down a little bit this side. And this side. Let's try that. Now that's still sitting out a little bit. I'm going to take another smidge off the edge here. Let's try that. No, we need to go again. Okay, that now fits perfectly and it's about the right height. It is a little bit messy from my hacksawing, so I'm just going to grab my deburring tool and I'm just going to clean that up. Okay, and I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, so that all fits. So now I can just glue and screw this part on. Now we've got the top light in. Moving down, the next thing we're going to do is fit the signs. So I've got the side light box cover here. I'm going to pick the nicest side. That's going to be outside. This is going to be the inside. So I'm going to want to drill a hole in the plastic, maybe there, 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 and I think there and there. Just with my little 4-gauge screws. Okay, once that's done, we'll just position the sign and screw it on. Now I've gone ahead and fitted all my signs to my front light box covers. Now all I've got to do is fit them to the light boxes. Now I've jumped ahead. I have already fitted all the front light box covers. All the light boxes are fitted. And the main box is pretty much together now. So the other thing I've done is I've gone through with my wood filler and I've filled all my cracks, my screw heads, and I'm just waiting for this wood filler to dry, and then I can take it outside, get the belt sander onto it, and then fine detail sand until I get a nice smooth finish and I've got rid of all the imperfections. Now don't be surprised if you use a fair bit of wood filler. I've almost completely used this tub here. That's not unusual because, and particularly here on the top in the seam, we cut our kits to plus or minus 2 millimeters. That still leaves plenty of room for wood filler, so you will use a fair bit. Once you start sanding, you're also going to find that a lot of the paint that you already put on at the pre-assembly stage when you painted the parts is going to come off, particularly in the top assembly, and that's because there's so many joints in there that need to be filled and smoothed out, and that again is not unusual. But remember, the benefit of painting before we started was all of this internal stuff, all of the walls, everything is pretty much ready to go. It's just that, particularly that top assembly there, that's going to need a fresh coat of paint before it's finished. Now the only things left to do are to fit the back and to finish the doors. And again, we don't finish the doors until such time as all of the paint and trim work on the door is done, because the next thing to do for the doors is to fit the windows. So let's do that. It's pretty straightforward. Just put my door down again. I get my window, peel off the protective film, and this one comes pre-drilled, so I'm just going to position it over here and screw it down. Okay, so the window is now fitted, as you can see, and the other thing to do is to fit the hinges and the handles. Now I've already fitted the hinges. I find it easier to fit them to the door and then hang the door with the hinges already attached. Now again, I've used the little 4 gauge short screws and not the nice brass ones that came with the hinges. The brass ones are nice, they match the hinges beautifully, but they're just too long and they will stick out the back of the door. Now you could put a little bit of packing behind there if you really wanted to use the brass screws that came with the hinges, but the 4 gauge screws that come in the kit are perfectly adequate for the job. Okay, so the door is pretty much ready to go. The other door needs its window. It also needs its sign. Now this is where the sign's going to go. So I've got my self-adhesive sign here. It's going to just drop in there nicely. So I'll just pop that out. I'll peel off the self-adhesive film. And I'll drop it in. Okay, so that's the sign fitted. Now the last thing we need to do to the doors is just to fit the handles. And again, unfortunately, the brass screws that come with the hinges are too long for this application, so we're going to use the little 4 gauge screws. If I can find a brass looking one before the kit goes out, then I'll replace some of these silver ones with the brass ones so we get a nice match. Now, you could use your tape measure here. I generally just do it by eye. So I'm going to line this up. I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to screw one in, then I'm going to make sure I'm happy that it's straight. And do the other one. Now obviously I want the 2 handles to match, so I'm going to line the 2 doors up here on the table to fit the other one. Okay, the doors are ready to be hung on the main box. Once the doors are hung, you can fit the magnetic catch, and then the back of the bookcase can go on. Now I'm going to hang the doors. I find the trick to hanging the doors is to get one central screw in at the top hinge, get one central screw in at the bottom hinge, and then the rest of them look after themselves. Screwdriver. So the doors are on, next to fit the magnetic catch. Now you have a number of choices as to where you put the magnetic catch. and I've decided what I'm going to do on this occasion is I'm going to fit it just inside this wine rack space here. Yep, you can see that, and to the back of the door with the outer flap. So I'm going to fit it here, but as I say, you could fit it up under here if you wanted to, on your top shelf. You could fit it up under here if you wanted to. It's up to you where you fit it. I'm going to fit mine here. So the magnetic catch is fitted. Now I actually had a fair bit of trouble with that because my screws kept sticking to the magnet. But because I'm controlling the video, I'm going to cut that bit out and make it look like it was easy. So the bookcase is finished. All we're going to do is add the back. Now fitting the back's a pretty straightforward process. I'm not actually going to do it now because I want to take this outside and sand it and get it ready for display. So I'm not going to fit the back. You're on your own there, but it's pretty straightforward. It's a question of positioning it. It's a question of using what 4 gauge screws you have left over, and also of using the nails. So you will have some of these panel nails, and they're particularly good for along the edges here where you've got too thickness of material to move into. The only tip I will give you for the back that I find useful is to just get a pen or a texter and then just mark here the middle of the shelves. What that means is once you've fitted the back, you can run a string line along there and you can put little screws through the back and into the shelf. Okay, so as I say, I'm not going to fit it now. Over to you. Once your back is finished, your kit is complete. I hope you enjoyed the project. I hope it looks good, and we'd really appreciate a photograph of the finished product if you get a chance.